Okay, we're back with part 2. We're going to start the disassembly, and first thing I'm going to do is take the magazine out. Start getting tools as I need them. We're going to depress this plunger, this little pivot here, and see if we can slide off this end cap. Keep your thumb over it or your spring will go flying. And you can see that inside of this one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a little paper towel for all my parts and kind of separate them as I go. And you can see that this spring is rather dirty. I just run it on here like this paper towel, and you can see that it's dirty. So that's the first thing we're going to do. Now we're going to take the grips off. Find a small screwdriver that fits in there. That one's a little big. See if we got one a little smaller. Threads seem to be good. Top seems to be good. No real scratches or dings or gouges or anything of that nature. We'll take off the other side. Now this one's a little tight coming off around this little button right here for the mag release, and that may be the exact reason that that may be what's catching. So I'm just going to get a screwdriver here and slowly work it up. So we may open this up just a little bit because the mag release button feels so much better with that not being tight. So now I'm going to take apart the mag release button. It was only held on there by a couple screws, and you can see there's only 3 little parts that go with that, and you can see that this spring is dirty. Everything in there is dirty, so we'll set that aside. Now let's open the barrel with this little lever here. I'm going to open that barrel. That opens that, and we're going to get we'll see how easy this little pin punches out. Okay, that pin doesn't just come out real freely, so we'll leave that alone for right now. But I am going to take off the barrel release. It just pushes out. Well, I said it did. It doesn't. Okay. So let's examine this a little closer. I think what we'll take out is this little spring right here first. And just pop it over that tab and see if that pulls out freely. And it did. And there's that little pin or spring. Okay. Now I'm going to get a punch block, I guess you could say, and see if I can find a spot on this for punching that pin a little bit better. Let me get some of my punches now. Some of my punches I've broken over the years, but let's see how this drives out. If it's an easy drive out, just get it over that edge a little bit. That doesn't drive out that easy, so I am again going to leave that alone. Now, I want to relieve that. Got one side of that out. But I think what I need to do is take this other little pin out first. I don't like punching these pins real hard if they're a little difficult. So I'll tap them easy first. See how they come. Now this spring should just pull right out if I put some pressure this way, because it is attached to the slide. That is, I'm assuming, the recoil spring. Seems a little difficult. And it goes behind, there's a pin right here that retains part of it, so I think I'm going to need to punch that pin out. And it's not that hard. I just need to get it over a hole. Now that it's coming out easy. Okay, now the pin dropped out. There's the pin. I'm going to leave. Now we'll see how this comes out. This little spring in here is, I think it's a combination spring. Okay. I believe this, and you can see it's a little bit off. I don't know if I did that or if that's just the way it is, but this is like a combination spring. It does the slide and I guess you would say the recoil spring and the trigger at the same time. So now the other issue, let's take the hammer out. And that also apparently locks in that area. We're going to see if the hammer pin will come out. Now that it's moving easier, switch pins. Now there's some pressure on the hammer with the spring, that's why that was difficult. There's that pin. Now the hammer should come out. You can see all the grit and dirt from years of use and not in the slide. Now, I'm not sure exactly how this trigger comes out, but I know that this spring, this trigger guard is also the spring for flipping the barrel up. Okay, you can see it moving when I push the barrel down, and that may be preventing me from taking anything else out. I can take out the hammer spring. I believe it's just a little in here there's the spring and there's the hammer strut, and it should be loose now, so that should just pop right out, and it does, and it is kind of nasty also. Set that aside. Now I need to get the trigger out, but the trigger needs to come, this bar I think what I'm going to do is I may just have to knock the poop out of this one and just give it some good wax. I have seen these break from firing, but I've never seen one break from removing, but we've got to get that pin out. Okay, it has moved a little bit. Move it off the edge. Okay, now it's moving. It just took, this is a real tight pin, so now I'm going to switch to a different punch, and this really isn't a punch, but I like using this one because it does have a flat end, and I don't use it when I'm doing something that has to be whacked on real tight. And there's the barrel, and this spring just comes right out. That's the hammer, or not the hammer, but the barrel spring, and this should just come out forward, which I'm not sure about that. It's still got some reset pressure, so, and I don't know where that spring is. So, and you can see that it pivots right here on this little pin, so I'm going to take that little pin out. And that little pin, it doesn't appear to be tapered. And it doesn't appear to want to move. That's strange. What do you guys think? Get my flashlight, I might could see a little better. Okay. I'm not seeing anything in there. There is a spring in there. It's just hidden somewhere that I can't physically put my eyes on. And so I have to knock that pin out. That pin just has to come out. There's no way around it. So I'm just going to have to smack the crap out of it. It still is not wanting to move. And you know, something I could do, because of the way this is set, okay, I could leave this in place, and I may have to leave this trigger in place, because everything in there, it's on the back side, so it's not when it's pulled in, it is back to its normal position. So the Cerakote will cover that. Now all these parts will have to be sandblasted, and you know, gone through, degreased and all that. So that will not be a problem. Doing that, so that I can leave, and I may end up having to leave that one. So the next thing I'm going to do is kind of separate these parts. It will be done in different stages. The metal parts will be done first, because they require a different cure cycle in the oven. And what we'll do with the barrel, we're going to plug the barrel. We're going to run a small wire through the plug, and then make sure both ends of the barrel are plugged. We're going to completely do the magazine. And we're going to do the follower. And you can see how dirty that is. We're going to do the follower, the magazine, the base. This part right here that attaches to the spring, I don't always do this with Cerakote. Usually if the customer request, I do. And it also depends on if the how clean it is, if there's any rust. And this one seems to be good and clean, you know, and free of rust. So that'll probably just be cleaned with acetone. The trigger guard, which also is the combination of, it's the spring that opens the barrel. This will be done. That is the barrel release. The hammer struts and spring will not be Cerakoted, but it will be cleaned. The barrel, there's only one more area that I need to do, and that's take out the firing pin, and because I will not Cerakote the firing pin, but I do want to make sure it's all clean in there when I Cerakote the slide. The hammer, of course. The pins will be Cerakoted. The screws will be Cerakoted. This spring will not be. This spring won't be. This spring won't be. These pins and screws. This piece is internal. It will not be coated. So basically this is the layout of the parts that will be Cerakoted, and the next step is we're going to degrease these. We'll put them in the oven to off-gas them. We'll check for any nicks or burrs. I'll run my fingers all over. If I feel any nicks or burrs, we may address that with the stone. We'll check all the edges, make sure that's there. We'll look for cracks. Anything that may show a bad appearance when it's coated. And then this will be, there will be 2 cycles of Cerakote for all these parts. What I'll do is, the barrel, the top of the barrel, which is here, okay, will have 1 set of scroll work. This front part, smooth part of the slide on each side will have some scroll work. So what we'll do, these will be coated pink. The frame will be coated pink. And that's all that'll be done on that cycle. Okay? Now that cycle is 15 minutes for the cure, for the flash cure. And then what we'll do is then we'll come back, put on our decals where they're supposed to go. Then all the rest of this right here will be coated black. And when that's through being coated, we'll do a flash cure, and then we'll take out the parts that have the stencils on it. We'll remove the stencils. Possibly at that time we'll check it for hard edges, and it will be, we will kind of hone them down a little bit. You can use some 4/0 steel wool. You can absolutely use some denim fabric, and that'll take some of the edge off. And then once we've done that, you could do that at the flash cure, or you can wait and do it when it's fully cured, which is I think it's 300 degrees for 1 hour or 200 degrees for 2 hours, and it just depends on how everything goes. And then that'll be done, and then we'll do the grips. The grips will be done by themselves because they are plastic, and we don't want to bring those up in temperature to the 300 degrees, or we'll melt them, and I'll have to find another pair of grips to go on this. So that's where I'm going to leave this section of this video, and I'll take some shots so that when you do see this video, and you are watching this, you'll see some shots, some still shots of these parts after they've been sprayed pink. And then I'll set them down here because this is where I'll be working on that, and we'll put the decals on. We may run a little video while we're doing that, and then we'll have some still shots after that's been removed. And then what we'll do is we'll do another video with the assembly, and I think probably what I'm going to do is just leave this trigger in here, because I would rather leave that in there and spend a little extra time, because when you sandblast, you do get grit in these little grooves down in here and in here, and you can feel it. So we'll make sure all the grit is removed. But rather than risk damaging the frame of this, because this may be a hard to get frame, you know, and you may end up having to buy another one and salvage the frame out of it. But so we're just going to leave it alone, and that way we're at less risk for that. And we'll see you on the next video. Thank you, and stay tuned.